And if I had to be another person to stand up, if I think, after really going through this, and looking at the files and looking at the case, if I really feel that Karen Reed didn't do this and I have to be a voice that stands up and helps, I will.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
We're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Now, just because you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do. And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it? She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Karen Reed's not going to fold. Karen Reed's not going to give up. Defense team's not going to quit. The Free Karen Reed movement is going to continue. We will continue to raise funds for her. We will continue to do standouts across Massachusetts, across the nation, across the world to let everybody know what's going on here in the state of Massachusetts, the corruption. And we will continue to get the word out there. Believe me. Believe me. Good morning, fine people of the internet and people in the Free Karen Reed universe. Welcome back in to Let's Talk Live here on the LTL Media channel. I am feeling a little under the weather today. I don't know. There's just something in the air. It's really crummy out today. I woke up and was just congested and not feeling well. So I don't know. Here we are. It was funny. I was just before I came on live, I was like sitting in the back of my chair. And because this chair is black, it makes me look a lot wider than I really am. Like this is my waist, but you can see the chair behind me. I was like, gee, man, I must look really big on camera. But it's because of the chair is wider than my body. It's like weird. I kind of was like, had this like grimace silhouette going on. I'm like, what the hell's going on? But anyway, I hope everybody's doing well this morning. I see a lot of new names here in the chat. I'm seeing my channel members. I have a few moderators here, and thank you for being here. We're going to go through today and look at the recent video from the behavior panel. And they actually just did an analysis on Jennifer McCabe's body language from the first trial. And I scrubbed through it. I didn't completely watch the whole thing. So I'll just be honest with everybody. But from like what I saw, you know, I think some of the things are going to piss people off. I think some people are going to agree. You have to kind of look at the context and all of this stuff too. You know, I don't know how immersed this channel is in watching the trials. I mean, we know what's going on here in Massachusetts. We've been following this for almost 2 years, especially here on this channel. But, you know, there were some things that I thought they got really right. I think there was some things that they got really wrong. I've used one of their videos before when they did the Nicholas Alaverdian body language breakdown. And I reached out to Scott, as he's the one of the guys that are on the panel. I said, hey, I came across your Nicholas Alaverdian video. Is there any way that I can use it in one of my live shows to do an analysis? Perfectly fine with it. They just said, yeah, we just like when people reach out and ask to use our video. So I reached out to Scott this time. I think he's sick right now. I think he's got the flu. He kind of mentions it in this video. I'm not sure when this was shot. And I also know that he's very busy with the Psychopath Awards. I think that just happened or is happening this weekend. So I didn't hear anything back, but I always just reach out and just say, hey, can I use your video to do an analysis? He hasn't had any issues in the past. And I always keep saying, like, you got to come on the show sometime. So hopefully, you know, when they get out of their busy schedule, I'd love to have one or two of these gentlemen over here. So, you know, again, I think some of it we're going to line up with some of our thoughts. I think some of it we're not. Particularly, I know Mark was, I would say, off in this when I noticed it watching through this. And I know Scott didn't really talk a lot in this episode. He usually talks a lot. He just wasn't feeling well. He kind of sat back and let the other gentlemen on the panel talk. So again, we'll have some fun with this today. We'll go through it. And I thought it was funny, so fitting that the day before I actually do this episode, we actually have we had I would say like an incident that kind of popped up on my Facebook page the other day. And after doing some investigation, I found out that this person supposedly is not connected to any of the McAlberts, but does have the last name of Higgins, which was funny. And I was going to try to start screenshotting all this stuff, but he deleted all his comments and ran away when I called him out and said, "Are you related to Brian Higgins?" But I'm going to pull this up. So I had a post on my Facebook page of Rita Lombardi during the 5 Stone audit, the review, when they had the public forum, and Rita was down there, and she got up to the mic several times and questioned 5 Stones and had some questions and comments to things that were in their report. And it was this post here, and this guy came in by the last name of Higgins and the first name Mike, and his use of the English language is terrible. He doesn't know how to spell. He doesn't know the difference between your, and your. And it was pretty good. But a fan of the channel actually snapshot some of this stuff for me, so we had a little bit of a record of it. Excuse me, I'm a little congested today. So I said, looks like we had a little visit from one of Jennifer McCabe's friends on my page today. When I called them out and asked them if they were related to Brian Higgins, they deleted the comments and ran away. So it was this guy here, this Mike Higgins, and his his comment. He went off about, I'm a clown. They didn't gaslight anyone. You're a fraud of a reporter grifting for people's money. Report facts, you dipshit. They answered everything. No corruption, no cover up. Just because it doesn't fit your narrative, you're butthurt clown. I'm a butthurt clown. And the funny thing was, I love this stuff when people say, "Oh, you're a grifter" and stuff. And then I just post achievements and things that we've done here on the channel to help people in our community. And I threw up a picture of the Enrique Delgado Garcia billboard. And I said, if this is grifting, can you explain grifting to me when I'm giving back to my community to raise awareness? So I just hit these people up when they try to pull this shit with me. And I just asked them, what have you done lately for your community? They don't do anything. They didn't do anything. And then I asked him if he was related to Brian Higgins. And after that transpired, he decided to delete his comments and run away. And then the funny thing is, if you look here, his profile, he updated his profile picture, and this fan of the channel actually screenshotted the likes on his page. And here we go. Jennifer McCabe is a friend of this Mike Higgins. So, again, it was some further review and some investigation. This account has been around, and I found it pretty funny and pretty fitting that we're doing this today. And this popped up yesterday. So Nicole RM says they all getting nervous. Yeah, we're heading back into trial 2.0. We shouldn't be there, but I think that the team is going to be very well prepared this time around going in. So it was, let's see. Jojo says Jennifer McCabe was spotted at a restaurant in Easton last night. It's so funny. Ruby C says he's not related to the McAlberts, but he's definitely a Canton troll who simps for them. Ah, yes. And that's what I found out in a lot of this, because I posted up on Twitter and people were commenting. But it's just fitting that Jennifer McCabe is friends with this person. Let's see. Scott says, I lost patience with the newbies to this case. Melanie Little was a guest last night on a channel just getting up to speed. Oh my God, I can't anymore. I can only hang with case experts. You know, Scott, it's funny that you say that, because this has been kind of the conversation and and some of the things that I've heard been going on behind the scenes. I know that I've been going back and watching a lot of Aiden's episodes, and he's been kind of calling out, some of these pages that have kind of popped up lately, saying that they're deeply immersed in the Free Karen Read movement and here to support Karen. And the thing with kind of like that Boston Globe reporter stream that I did the other day, which was very successful. So I want to say thank you all that came to the channel and watched that episode, and all the new subscribers that came in because of that episode. I looked at that reporter, and I call a lot of these people kind of like Johnny come latelys. I noticed that some certain trends with larger platforms that are now jumping on this because it's got some traction. That's not why we did this. That's not why we do this. We do this for simple things of like this. On my shirt right here, to resist tyranny, to resist a government rule, to resist over the government controlling your life and people controlling your life and people setting you up for a narrative, because it's about power. That's all this is. And the thing that irks me about living here in the state of Massachusetts is that we resisted tyranny 250 years ago with the Boston Tea Party. We didn't want government rule. And what is fucking sick that things have twisted back into a government state. I mean, this is one of the most heavily governed states in this country, and I hate it. I hate it. We're constantly suppressed. We can't stand out in front of the courtroom. They put in a 200-foot buffer zone. They don't want us there. They don't want us there speaking our First Amendment right. You look at Aiden. What have they been trying to do? Shut him down because of his First Amendment right for reporting and being upset at a false narrative that is being set in Norfolk County against Karen Read. Okay? I hate it. I hate that our rights are always infringed on here. And the people that we only have to blame, and I'm sorry, people, I don't know what way you vote politically, but I'm going to say it. You may be part of the problem. You may be part of the problem. Voting these people in, constantly voting these people in. You've got to look at the people that are running your communities. And I've said this over 1,000 times. We worry way too much about who's going to be the president, who's going to be the president. I'm going to tell you right now, you ain't going to have a fucking 8-year president anymore. Every 4 years, it's just going to turn and turn and turn and turn and turn. It's going to change all the time. But you got to look at the people that are running your community. You've got to get out and figure out who these people are and vote against them if they don't align with your running your neighborhoods. If they're not lining with the ways that things are being run in your community, get them out. These are people that have footholds in the ground for years and years and years, and they just and they keep voting in because people are lazy. They don't want to go out to the polls and make a change. We just had an amazing thing happen in Canton the other day. Susan Harrington finally got on the board, and John Conley is out. But people, they have spoken. They've gotten up. They're tired of it. They want real change. And I don't give a shit what that fucking audit said. That's that was just a PR campaign for the Canton Police Department. And I find the timing of all this stuff when it's been released is amazing. It's amazing. So again, you have the power to do this. Stop worrying about the president. It's all going to get ironed out. Look at the people that are in your communities, running your communities. They're the ones that are destroying it. Look what's happened to Boston. Boston's a mess. I hate when they sit there and get out in here and go, oh, the crime rate is so low. Really? Is it really? There's constant problems in Boston. But this is your time. You know, this is your time. Resist tyranny. Get out there and vote these people out. Make a change in your community. So that's my diatribe this morning, my soapbox moment. So, you know, again, I just, look, you all are smart. You know the channels to follow. I'm not going to tell anybody to watch a certain person or follow a certain person. That's up to you. You have every right to follow who you want. I know the people that have been in this with their heart from the beginning. I know the channels that are doing it right. I keep all that stuff basically to myself. And again, you're all smart. You'll figure it out. There are some really great people that are covering this, that have covered this. And there's some great people that have come into it that, again, are doing a good job. But, the audience knows why we're all here. And to keep following the people that have been in this, from the beginning. We wanted to be the voice for Karen Read because she wasn't getting any positive press. And when we got onto it, almost 2 years ago, and had been down there at the courthouse, at the hearings, doing these live streams night after night after night, to give that press to Karen that she's not getting in the mainstream media. You know how they all paint her. This is to get clicks and views on their fucking articles, like that stupid Boston Globe article. I'm going to go talk to people that flipped, possibly flipped in the Karen Read moment. Really? Where 2 articles ago, you're talking about Tesla cars and fucking if we should hatch our own chickens to grow eggs. You weren't getting clicks on those articles. So you had to get out and do something like this, where literally I went back through her chronological timeline of the articles that she's done. There's nothing related to Karen Read there. Nothing. So anyway, let's get into this episode. I know I've kind of gone on here for a while about all of this. And again, choose wisely, watch who you want to watch, respect who you want to respect. I have my own personal views on things, and you know how I align with everything. So anyway, let's get into this episode. I'm going to share my screen here. We'll start getting into a rhythm, and let's go through this one.
Today, we're going to talk about Jennifer McCabe.
Excuse me.
She's part of the Karen Read trial. Greg, tell us about the videos we're going to watch.
So these videos are from the first Karen Read trial, the one that ended in mistrial. And this is her friend and the sister-in-law of the homeowner where O'Keefe was killed or died. And she is on the stand in cross, remembering that cross controls some of how questions are asked. I guess what you need to be able to work from here.
Yes.
So not only did you have a clear view, you indicated in your words you had a good view of it, right?
Correct.
Then you noticed that the SUV was gone after the 12:45 text, right?
Correct.
So you're looking at that SUV over the course of between the beginning text and the end text. It's about 19 minutes, right? 12:27 or so to 12:45, 18, 19 minutes, something like that, correct?
Correct.
I mean, maybe add a minute because you got back up and didn't text, the SUV was gone, right?
Correct.
So you would agree, we could do some basic math. You're looking at that SUV on average about every 3.5 minutes.
I guess I'm. If you want to pull out the times and you can look at them.
Well, we talked about the times, and you agreed that you were texting between 12:27 and 12:45.
Correct.
Right? So if you were just to divide that by 5 times, getting up and looking, I don't know, I'm doing the math in my head, maybe it's every 3 minutes or so?
Correct.
At no time did you hear any noise or sound outside that was unusual? Caught
No.
your attention? You didn't hear any squealing of tires or squealing of brakes?
No.
I've done a lot of thinking, and I've probably thought about this thought before. I was thinking about this morning going into this live this live stream, and I said, the thing that's very odd to me about all of this, when you listen to Jennifer McCabe's testimony, and she hits this point in the testimony where she gets very upset at Jackson and says, I've been under a lot of stress, and we pull up to the scene and it's very chaotic. And I'm paraphrasing here. I'm probably not word for word here, but it's very chaotic. And I see my friend that I love, John O'Keefe, down in the snow. And I believe it was the questions around the 911 call. Here's my whole thing about this. And I think that, this has been mulled over a million times. And I don't know why this has just dawned on me now, but it probably has before. And I just forgot about it, is that when Karen, Carrie, and Jen arrive at 34 Fairview and Karen gets out and runs to John's aid, why, if you're someone's friend that you love very much, why are you not running up to Brian Albert's door and pounding on the door to get people to come out and help? You have a first responder, a retired police officer that lives there that could help in this situation, and you do none of that. And then you make this shady 911 call about there's a man down in the snow. I mean, that should tell you right there what's going on in this case. Never, and let's add in the Google search, the 2:27 a.m. Google search. So I was really heavily thinking about this today. I know this has been mulled over, thousands and thousands of times, but it just always hits me when I go back and watch her testimony. Just insane. All right, let's keep playing.
You didn't hear any screaming or yelling?
No.
Exactly.
Any loud voices or foul language or door slam?
No.
You didn't hear any verbal argument or the revving of an engine, anything like that?
I'll be right back.
As a matter of fact, you didn't.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
So when it comes to behavior profiling, the best time to look for data points is all the time. It's not during these high points. And a lot of people think the best data shows up in these big questions, but behavior leaks constantly, especially in these quiet moments or when somebody thinks that they're safe. So we see a lot of up left eye movement for accessing to answer some of these questions. That's going to come up later. And she's saying, or the attorney's asking, did you hear noises like squealing tires or engines? Right at this moment, there's a forward hunch, kind of a lean down. And one thing our body does in times of stress or fear, our arms will come in, our shoulders will come up. We'll try to protect arteries and soft spots. We don't have any bones right here, so we'll kind of bring that rib cage down to protect this little area. And we'll see that hunch. And right at that same time, we have an increase in blink rate significantly. And this is both change and cluster on the 5C checklist, changes and clusters. But note for a second that there are times when we see nothing because nothing is present. Stakes are very important when it comes to deception detection. So one key skill to have if you're raising the stakes is, can I preface my question? Can I do things to heighten up this person's level of...
Now, I can already tell you, I think people are going to be very upset with Mark in this episode. And usually pretty good. But I heard a lot of people and I read a lot of the comments that people were like upset with Mark. Let me just get my clicker down here. I just got to recognize this. The Goodmans, a member for 6 months. Thank you so much for being here. Look at this. Christine, a member for 14 months, has been with me for a year and a half. And the Goodmans also have gifted one membership. So welcome new member, one membership on the Goodmans. Thank you. And on top XX, she's first, if not second, of the most lies in all of this. Yes, I agree.
Anxiety with
Thank you
deception.
so much for the
Before
two.
I ask the question. So big lies usually hide between these little small movements. So if you've ever asked somebody where they were and they start coughing and shifting their weight or giving too many details before the answer starts coming out, it's usually a gold mine. So think about this as we're going through these next few videos. It's not the answer It's the packaging sometimes. It's the packaging that's wrapped in. I'm in Las Vegas, by the way, if you're wondering about my background. Greg, what do you got?
How odd, by the way, too, and I noticed this. Look in Chase's background, the photo that is in the background in that hotel room. Tell me that doesn't look like Karen Reed. Tell me that doesn't look like Karen Reed. Isn't that nuts? Tell me that doesn't look like Karen Reed. I saw that. I was like, oh my God. It's like she's just watching, looking over her shoulder. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, Chase, I love the fact you point out that dropping her head and moving forward. She doesn't turtle, which is interesting because some people are going to jump to turtling, which means she's being defensive. She's not. She is outright aggressive when she leans her head forward and does that. There's absolute hatred between her and this guy at this point. Now, here's a data point for you guys. This is a 3.5 hour cross, and this is 1 hour into it. So she's already pretty agitated by the time we get here. And she's saying, look, yes, I'm angry because of the way we've been treated. You can feel that agitation, and it's palpable in how she wants to talk to this guy. Let's walk through a handful of things. There's a lot in this one. And I love the other thing that you pointed out, when she feels safe. We're going to see many times in this video when she feels safe, a change in body language. She starts off with some short answers and short stroke nods that are compliant without being helpful. It's a good indicator she's agitated. I'm going to do what you tell me. But she's frustrated. She's wooden in movement. She does a Desmond Morse tongue jut in response to the situation. See her push her tongue between her lips. Desmond Morse said it's baby's first no or first refusal. I think it's the same thing in most adults. Eye lock is good, but she accesses as she speaks. The eye lock is because of aggression, I think. But when you ask a question about 1245 text, I agree with you, Chase. She goes over and starts looking, rifling through her head to a memory. Most people don't make hard eye contact in normal conversations. We don't do this. It's why we think people are being deceptive when they do that. It's because when I ask you a question, your eyes roam around your head to look for information. And there's no really easy way for us in 2 minutes to tell you how to baseline that. So we just tell you that it happens, and we'll point out what we think something is as it occurs.
See, and that's like to Greg's credit saying that, and it's kind of weird with the saying here. I always say when people look up and they're looking around and they're looking this way or that way, to me, and believe me, I'm not a body language expert, but it is, to Greg's point here, saying that they're looking for information. Are they looking for the lies? Is she looking how to line up her story? Quite possibly. And again, I don't know how immersed they are in the case. They may be just doing this, let's just go through this. And it's a good body language expert, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Wow, Cynthia, thank you so much. 10 gifted memberships. Welcome in new members. I appreciate that support. I try to do a members only stream at least once or twice a month. They're a lot more relaxed, and it gives you kind of time with me to ask any open questions. So we try to do those as much as we can. So, wow. Thank you so much. All right, let's keep playing through here.
There's also a couple of other interesting things she does. Her thumbs go up and her palms go out, and she's got head shaking as she tries to work out the frequency of the equation he's doing. She's like, what? That's good, because we'll see that again when she feels like she's helpless and has no control. And if you don't think she's irritated with this guy, listen to that exasperation, and Scott, to quote you, on my last nerve, is she does a semi-eye roll on him. She just kind of rolls her eyes up in her head just a touch. And then, there's just so much in this one. It's really good to see where she goes with this. I'm going to leave it at that and say that just pay attention. Because a person shrinks in a chair isn't always turtling. Her neck is not protected.
Turtling.
She's put her head forward, and that's not protected.
At the behavior panel, our goal is to help you.
I'm going to speed up through the commercial here because I'm not sponsored by them, but they are. Maybe I'll get a sponsor someday. Yeah, sponsors, reach out. Let's get a sponsor here on LTL Media. That'd be great. I'm going to double time this I'm going to just go up one speed here. Let's go.
Clear, direct, simple answers. There's something good about that, I would say. High blink rate throughout, but she's sitting in a courtroom. It's going to be high stress. So, we're always looking for change. We're always looking for change. And just like you say, Chase, all the time, not just under the highest moments of stressful questioning, but around all of that. Is there any stress? Does somebody know what's coming up? Are they preempting that with a change? So a good baseline of relatively a lot of stress throughout. Just one, what I might call, after something you named there, Chase, a hygienic adapter that she just flicking her hair back just once. We'll see that later on. But again, it's a change, but it doesn't rank very high for me. There's nothing else that comes with it.
I did notice that too.
Cluster.
Pokey.
We will see.
That's a good call out. I did notice that this morning. I was like, yeah. So they're not immersed in the case. Mark even says prosecution or prosecutor when it's clearly the defense. Yeah. I noticed that too when I was scrubbing through this.
A little bit more later on, but at this point, it's a change, but it doesn't rank high for me. The eye accessing, I'm seeing that as well, along with breathing changes at the same time. That just says to me, okay, she's actually thinking about these questions. There's not so many stock answers. There's like, okay, question came. Some of them she thinks about. The breathing changes. She gives an answer, sometimes monosyllabic, but she gives an answer. She's thinking about it. So,
why would you have to think about it? That's the thing I don't get. Why would you have to think about your answers? If you're thinking about your answers, in my opinion, you're sorting through the story that you need to stick through. Because people that don't lie, it just flows off their tongue. And that's my opinion. I mean, that's just my experience with people. If you have nothing to hide and nothing to lie about, you just tell it the way it is. Why do you have to think about it? Why do you have to sort through it? Doesn't make sense.
Going through some mechanics here of events, she seems to me to be under stress because she's in court, but none of the questions themselves seem to stress her any more than any other.
Really?
At this point. Listen, just want to have a shout out to somebody as well, because last week, who was it we were looking at last week with the Prince Harry piece? I can't remember.
Her name is tough to, I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't anyway, doesn't matter.
Jar something.
Yeah.
Shanduka.
Yeah. And I noted this big kind of thrusting shoulder shrug. One of our panelists put in who's from Zimbabwe, same place that she came from, said, yeah, in Zimbabwe, that's it is, Chase, like the joust. It is like seeing you off my territory thing. So look, the great thing is just how all of us learn all the time. I saw something that I'd never seen, but not that I haven't seen a shoulder shrug, but not at that velocity, not with that intention. Rang a bell for me going, that I've not seen. I wonder if it's like that joust that Chase talks about, but in the shoulder. Turns out from one point of data from somebody from Zimbabwe going, yeah, you're right. So what a great show this is, because even people who are experts learn every week. Greg, what was your thought?
Yeah, while we're doing shout outs, I did a show last week for Josh Ritter on Courtroom Confidential on a YouTube channel. Great interview. He's going to call and interview each of you guys. If you haven't been to there and you're a true crime person, go see. He was a DA and prosecutor in LA. He knows Lonnie, our friend.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you mind if I mention the Psychopath Award since we're all in it?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. On Sunday, this weekend, we have the Psychopath Awards, and we have the stars of body language have all come out, and we're accepting and giving away awards for psychopaths. And we had the best time doing it. And I appreciate you guys doing all the work on that. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Everybody here did one, and they all came out really good. So there's that. Chase, I think you're up.
No, I think it's you. It's you, Scott.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I just want to reiterate, Scott. Yeah, go and see that Scott's show. Scott's put a lot of work into this, and from what I've seen of it so far, it's really, really good. So get in there and have a look and tell your friends and family. Scott.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all whacked out on flu dope, so I'm coughing and sneezing, getting shits and giggles every 5 seconds because I just got up a few minutes ago before we started. We did one show before this. This is our second one, and my brain is shot, so I can't, from a fair point of view, say anything about this woman in this thing, because it'd be drug addled. So
I really wish Scott could interject in this. He's usually pretty spot on and good about this stuff.
Let's move on.
Many people, Scott, would say this is your best work yet.
That's what I've been hearing. They're hoping this is going to go this way.
Yeah.
Oh, and I would be in
the drugs.
Exactly. I was get off the drugs, man. I was supposed to be in we're at Las Vegas with Chase right now. I would have been there if I hadn't gotten the flu.
Oh,
so
Yes,
So not only did you have a clear view, you indicated in your words you had a good view of it, right?
correct.
Then you noticed that the SUV was gone after the 12:45 text, right?
Correct.
So you're looking at that SUV over the course of between the beginning text and the end text. It's about 19 minutes, right? 12:27 or so to 12:45, 18, 19 minutes, something like that, correct?
Correct.
And you maybe add a minute because you got back up and didn't text, and the SUV was gone, right?
Correct.
So you would agree, we just do some basic math, you're looking at that SUV on average about every 3.5 minutes.
I guess I'm.
See, to me, you're sorting through and getting your story, trying to keep your story straight. That looking up, and again, I'm not a body language expert, but I just from years of talking to people and looking at people. If you have nothing to hide, you just spit it out.
If you want to pull out the times and you can look at them.
Well, we talked about the times, and you agreed that you were texting between 12:27 and 12:45.
Correct.
Right? So if you were just to divide that by 5 times, getting up and looking, I don't know, I do the math in my head, maybe it's every 3 minutes or so.
Correct.
At no time did you hear any noise or sound outside that was unusual? Caught your
No.
attention? You didn't hear any squealing of tires or squealing of brakes?
No.
You didn't hear any screaming or yelling?
No.
You didn't hear any loud voices or foul language or door slam?
No.
You didn't hear any verbal argument or the revving of an engine, anything like that?
No.
Matter of fact, matter of fact, the entire time that you looked out at that vehicle with that clear and that good view, you didn't see anything out of the ordinary, did you?
No.
And you would agree with me, as you looked at the SUV, you're looking over the lawn to the SUV out at the street, correct?
Correct.
There was no obstruction between you and the SUV. You've already testified to that. Is that right?
Correct.
And you could see everything in your field of view.
Correct.
You just got to really think about her answers.
And then you saw the SUV gone. It had driven away after 12:45.
Correct.
So I have a question, Ms. McCabe.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the body?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm assuming the body was on the front lawn.
The problem with that is you were looking at the front lawn,
Yeah.
weren't you?
I was looking at the vehicle and where it had moved.
Do you know what field of view is?
Would you like to explain it?
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is
Let me pause this real quick. Dill Pickle Chips, love that name, by the way. You just became a new member, so thank you so much for supporting the channel. I appreciate that. I love that exercise that Jackson did in the courtroom. And I want to, was it Jen? I think it was Jen. And talked about the crocodile, the alligator. The crocodile and the alligator's in front of you, your peripheral vision. You would see it if it's in front of you, but if you're looking past it, you would see it. And I think it was just during that testimony that he did it. And I know the chat will get me here if I'm wrong, because we've been through. But I mean, you would see it. Like I'm looking right now past my camera, but I can see my camera. I can see things on the floor. There's a fan and there's 2 chairs in front of me and there's a and I just looked real quick. There's a microphone over there.
one I might note at the top says awareness, acceptance, defiance in the face of accusation, and a setup by an attorney failing. This is a beautiful clip because when he starts talking, you see some contempt or disdain in the left side of her face, or in the right side of her face, I think it is, as to where when she realizes where this question's headed, and she's starting to get really agitated here. Then the attorney almost does a Perry Mason thing, like he's going to try to paint her into a corner to do this, and she has no part of it. It actually becomes kind of anticlimactic when he lowers his voice, lowers his tone, changes his cadence, and she just doesn't respond the exact way he thinks she will. You see, again, her chin is progressively moving forward. Now she's got a fry in her voice when she says no. One of the first times we've heard it. That's aggravation, I think, with the approach he just tried. And I think it's becoming clear to her where he's going with his defense now. This is defense saying that Karen Reed didn't back over him, that in fact you would have seen the body and you didn't see the body. So it must not have been there the night before. I think this blink rate at where you were looking across, that's processor, to your point, Chase, you say processor speed. That's her brain trying to, I don't think it's stress. I think it's her going, oh, I know where you're going with this. Then she responds with an we haven't heard as to yet, just before he lowers his voice for that. Then there's that chin boss of acceptance. That kind of, okay, you got something there, accompanied by that same exact helpless hand rise and no nod that she had around, I don't understand where you're going with this calculation. I don't understand your numbers. I think she's keenly aware of what field of view is, and she just does this in open defiance. I think she has no love for this guy, and we can see it across the stage. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. With the first question here, you didn't see anything out of the ordinary. We see this blink rate increase. It's a flutter right after the question. And this is kind of like when your brain has a bunch of apps running and we need to kind of close out all of these apps and start getting rid of them so we have more cognitive awareness. This is where we really start seeing a deviation from baseline. And that's the key. You could stare at somebody.
What the hell is going on?
Clear, direct, simple answers. There's something good about that, I would say. High blink rate throughout, but she's sitting in a courtroom. I mean, it's like, it's going to be high stress. So, you know, we're always looking for change. We're always looking for change. And just like you say, Chase, you know, all the time, you know, not just under the highest moments of stressful questioning, but around all of that. Is there any stress? Does somebody know what's coming up? Are they preempting that with a change? So a good baseline
It just went back? You'd be fucking kidding me. What just happened? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Right after the question. And this is kind of like when your brain has a bunch of apps running and we need to kind of close out all of these apps and start getting rid of them so we have more cognitive awareness. This is where we really start seeing a deviation from baseline. And that's the key. You could stare at somebody blinking all day, but unless it's different from their norm, it's meaningless. So eye accessing here changes to down left, right after her denial, which is kind of an internal dialogue. We're talking to ourselves, rehearsing something in our head. Then we see something that's called a sclera flash. And this is the widening of the eyes that we see during her answer. And this is the brain's fight or flight starting to kick in. We widen the eyes to take in more visual information when something feels potentially threatening to us. This is where you're seeing the brain on defense mode right here. She doesn't need to run, but her nervous system is saying something dangerous just came into the room. It's not about the...
Yeah, because you're being questioned about fucking not seeing a body on the lawn. So, yeah, now it's that fight or flight because you lying. You be lying and you got caught.
Lawyer, in my opinion, it's about what's inside her mind at that moment. What she's thinking of in that moment is what's stressful. So, and just keep in mind as we go through these next few videos, behavior is never random. It's always in service of something. So it's not really about catching a tell. It's about reading the why behind that tell and what's going on in the room. That's what we're trying to do here, especially in the next 2 or 3 videos. There's going to be some big revelations. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so she's asked by the lawyer, was the view unobstructed? We see a significant change in her eye accessing on that. But from my point of view, I think she's truly going to recollection. She's actually going into the picture in her head to go, yeah, was it unobstructed? Or is there anything that could be seen as an obstruction? I would suggest, just in case the lawyer goes, yeah, but hang on, I've got a picture here and look, there's an obstruction. And she's checking that she's going to be accurate around this. We hear tone raise and volume raise. I think she dislikes now the accusatory nature of where this questioning is going. I think that speaks as well.
She hates it because you lying. You caught. That's why you hate it, because it doesn't fit your narrative, because you're being confronted and you don't like that.
To chase that the flash in the eyes there as well. I think, things are ramping up for her. She head gestures the movement of the vehicle. That's good as far as I can see. She doesn't gesture with her hands, but she shows, the vehicle is moved and she's looking for the movement of the vehicle. Great. That's honest storytelling as far as I can see. And then she gets combative with a question. Would you like to explain it? Would you like to explain it? She says back to the lawyer. Yeah, so she's getting annoyed now, angry, upset, frustrated, a number of those things, most likely. The issue here is what she did there isn't that likable. And so we got to be careful as we watch this, that as things progress forward, she is going to potentially become less likable to us as an audience. And I think that was the first thing she did that would make us go, well, you've been a bit shirty, a bit rude. That's a bit unnecessary, isn't it? What's she hiding there? What's she got to get shirty about? What's going on here? So we've got to be careful that we don't mistake.
I think, the way that I kind of look at this, and I'm not just saying this because it's Jennifer McCabe, but I think that, knowing a little bit more about the background of the case, or reading a little bit more about it, I understand what they're doing. They're just kind of just breaking down body language. Okay, we get that. But I think just having some context going into this probably would have helped. And not to say that changed their overall projection in what they think of the body language. But I'm just saying, I think more context would have helped preemptively filming this episode. I would love them to do maybe a follow-up on this, where I'd love to see, like, now that we've gotten an overall scope of what's going on, and have them come back and analyze some more of this. I bet you their opinion would be completely different. So far, I think Chase has been pretty much spot on. I think Greg has been there as well. Unfortunately, Scott is sick during this episode. We're not hearing him a lot. But that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. How are you all feeling? Let me know in the chat. Who do you think has analyzed this perfectly so far?
Annoyance there, an upset of the line of questioning for annoyance at being potentially found out around some deception. Greg, you got a thought about this?
Yeah, no, Mark, I agree with you. The big thing we need people to get across is while believability for the jury is important, that's the single most important thing she has to do is he could undermine her. And we collectively are going to be able to look through agitation, and that doesn't mean guilt. There are other ways to pick that apart. Amateurs immediately, oh, she got agitated, she must be guilty. That's a big difference.
Yeah. Scott, any last thing to say on this one?
Yeah, Mark, in court, I've never been to any kind of court in London before. Are they still wearing the wigs, or am I imagining?
Yes.
Tell me about that. What's up with that?
Absolutely. Well, they wear, they're silks, so they have gowns. Some of them, if they're very special, will have their silks in a red bag. That can be very special, and their wigs. But yeah, you wear a wig, which harkens back to the days when people had lice in their hair and would have to shave it off, and you'd wear a wig to look something of authority. I think they're made out of horsehair.
Maybe I'll try that next week.
Horsehair. Yeah, you can make them yourself. Make your own, Greg, and have your own, kangaroo court in your backyard.
Yeah.
But yeah, they still wear the wigs.
Okay, where do you get them? They got a wig store, or is it
somewhere in the courts.
Barrister supplies.
Yeah.
Barrister supplies.
Legalwigs.com. They got a 20% off this week.
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm going to look up and see if barristersupplies.com is available.
Yeah, I'm in.
But in fact, the entire time that you looked out at that vehicle with that clear and that good view, you didn't see anything out of the ordinary, did you?
No.
And you would agree with me, as you looked at the SUV, you're looking over the lawn to the SUV out at the street, correct?
Correct.
There was no obstruction between you and the SUV. You've already testified to that. Is that right?
Correct.
And you could see everything in your field of view.
Correct.
And then you saw the SUV gone. It had driven away after 12:45.
Correct.
So I have a question, Ms. McCabe.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the body?
I have no idea. I'm assuming the body was on the front lawn.
The problem with that is you were looking at the front lawn, weren't you?
I was looking at the vehicle and where it had moved.
Do you know what field of view is?
Here it goes.
Would you like to explain it?
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It would have been nice if they extended the clip there with when AJ explains field of view and the alligator or crocodile. I can't remember what animal he used. It would have been nice to see that and show her reaction during that.
Ms. McCabe, I want to go back very briefly to something you said just before we broke. Was in respect of the statements that you attribute to my client out at the scene. You said, well, there was an officer possibly asking questions, or it could have been a female EMT, and I wasn't.
I'll address this. Let me get down to this comment. So Tiff's asking, Brian, have you watched Sergio? He's a retired deception detection expert with the FBI. He analyzes their words, truth revealed. He's fantastic. Here's the thing that I don't like about that guy. So when his channel came around and he started analyzing the Karen Reed case, I reached out to him and I asked him if he would come on my show and do kind of a live interpretation of what he did. And I took almost a full half day and went through testimony of all these videos and literally outlined them and put little timestamps on them. I sent the email to him. He was supposed to come on the live show, and the guy ended up dodging me, but then went on his channel and essentially used all the material that I gave him and made videos about it. So that's kind of my whole thing. And I just checked in on his channel not too long ago. He hasn't been making content. So anyway, I digress with that. But yeah, I was kind of a little ticked about that. And I spent like a half a day going through literally hours of testimony and time stamping everything. And I think in the video that he made, he's like, oh, LTL said something about LTL media, but he never came on my live show. And I was kind of pissed off about it. I let it go and I haven't said anything, but I guess I did now. But anyway, we'll just move on.
Answering questions about that, correct? Hence, you didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Can you be clear on your question?
Let me rephrase that. Before we broke a few minutes ago, you had said, the reason I didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, is because I was never asked. And the subject never came up about what an officer asked her when she declared that. So I just didn't offer it. And then you said, or it could have been an EMT.
Yes, I'm unclear who was there.
Isn't it true that at the grand jury, the question that was posed to you, and this is counsel page 208 of the grand jury, the question that was posed to you is, quote, so what happens next with yourself, Ms. Roberts, and Ms. Reed? And your answer was, so there are different, police officers getting statements from us. At one point, I'm standing with Ms. Reed, and she's saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And there was...
Yeah, and that was back, and I'll just address this again. No worries, Tiff. Not at all. Listen, I know the channel came up. It popped up. It is what it is. And this was like last summer. I think it was either during or just after. I think the trial was still going on. And I said, I'd love to have you come on and do this. And I worked on it hard. I sent the email. I had all the timestamps in it. This is the stuff that I would love you to analyze live on the show. I think it'd be a great live. And he ended up flaking out. And then someone told me that like, he made a video, but he mentioned your channel. But I'm like, yeah, but I put all the work into that and I wanted him to come do the live stream. It is what it is. I don't really care anymore. So be it. We'll just, we'll keep moving on and doing productive things here on LTL. All right, here we go.
An EMT, a female, standing right next to me and listening to her yelling, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Was pretty much nonstop. Remember that testimony?
I do.
So in point of fact, you were answering the direct question about what happened in front of the police officer and the EMT, correct?
There were multiple police officers and multiple EMTs present.
So now this is another police officer and a different EMT.
I'm not saying that.
Okay. But nowhere in this did you say that she declared the words, I hate him. Correct? We'll agree on that.
Correct.
Your Honor, I have I would like to have marked as next in order.
Okay.
Question. May I approach?
Yes.
Denise, thank you so much for the $10 on Venmo. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
I think she's stressed by some inconsistency here near the start. The eye fluttering is a great confirmation of the first tell that we kind of established. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to come up soon. And remember, that's kind of closing out the apps inside of somebody's brain. And it's typically someone also does this when they're dealing with a stressful idea or a stressful thought that they need to get rid of so they can speak. There's a slight, what I would call innocence display during this final third of this clip. Her teeth are closer together and not moving very much, kind of concealing some anger. But there's this hair tuck behind the ear. Greg's going to talk about that, no doubt. Then we see the eye flutter behavior. So there's two eye flutters that we kind of see usually. There's kind of rapport building and there's closing apps. So let's look for the rapport blink versus the app closing blink. So think of the first as I'm here with you, I'm building rapport, and the second as I need to shut down this thought really quickly. That's kind of the difference. Rapport blinks are slower, more natural, like your system is syncing with the other person, and these little app closing blinks are fast, more fluttery, like a browser glitching or crashing. It's more of I need to stop this internal process quickly. Totally different motive that's happening under the hood between those two things. There's a head tilt there, kind of an innocence display. We display our neck when we want to appear innocent or curious. But don't confuse that innocence display with proof of innocence. I don't want that to get tied up in anybody's mind. The body kind of speaks in these archetypes. What we care about is, does this pattern fit the situation or is it manufactured? Does it fit the situation or is it kind of put on? Is it a performance of some kind? Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so Greg, am I right?
Lori's saying, I think you tried. Listen, I don't want to shit on anybody's channel. I'm going to keep talking about this, and we'll move on for it. So I think he tried his channel, didn't really work out the way he wanted it to. The way that I look at it is YouTube's a very long game. I've been around for 5 years. My content has evolved and changed, and you got to really want to be in this to do this. And if you think that you're going to get these viral videos and overnight success, and it does happen with people, believe me, it does. It is a grind on YouTube. That is how you make it. You have to be dedicated to this. Your heart has to be in it. You have to be able to, your heart has to be in this if you want to do this. I mean, this can't just be, For me, it's not a half-ass thing. I don't half-ass this. I put everything into it, but it is a grind, and it takes a long time to get established here, build that audience and rapport with your audience. And I don't know. I guess that's all I really got to say. For people that want to do YouTube, I say start a channel, post a video on a Sunday, maybe post another one, and keep posting and posting and posting, and you'll start figuring it out. You will start figuring it out. It took me quite a few years to kind of buckle down what I wanted to do here and get into the direction that I wanted to be in. And this channel will evolve. This channel will totally evolve. And it is a long game. It's not quick overnight success. And if you get that, sometimes that can hurt you too. If you get that viral video, it could blast out your channel. You might not continue to grow. I like the slow and steady pace of growth because it just shows that you're improving. You're getting in the direction that the audience is steering you. And, every once in a while, one of those videos will catch the algorithm and you get a couple 100,000 views on it. And it's great. I love slow and steady wins the race in YouTube. And I've been saying that for a long time. Establish that rapport with your audience. Be honest in who you are. If you fake it, the audience will figure it out. They will figure it out. And that's my 2 cents about YouTube. And you got to love it. And you got to love it. And you got to be here for the people. That's very important. All right, let's go.
Right, that this video happens, they've just come back from a recess of
Yes.
some sort. Okay, yeah. Okay, so there's a bit of because it feels like there's a bit of a reset to me. She's back. She's not as heightened as she was in that last video that we watched. She's more back to where she was in video 1 that we saw. A little bit of a reset. She's calm. She's assertive. She asks for clarity around the question. I'd listened to that question a few times and I couldn't quite work it out. I was like, what the heck? Where are you going, man? Where are you going with this one? So I couldn't quite work it out. So that strikes me that she probably doesn't have set answers ready to go because she's asking for clarity on the question. If she had a set answer, she'd probably just deliver her best go at a set answer to her best idea of what question she thinks she's going to be asked. So she's seriously asking after the questions and wants to clarify them. We don't often find people who are being deceptive want to clarify questions so much. They'll tend to want to give a quick answer and get on and get the hell out of there, She's not afraid to correct the record, to go, no, it was like this. So she corrects the record in this. She's not.
I think Mark is way off. Mark is way off on this one. Sorry, Mark. I can't agree with you. I respect you as a in your craft, in your profession, but I don't agree with you on this one. All right, let's go.
Mirroring the questioner's dramatics and energy around this. The questioner is now ramping up quite a bit. My guess is to try and get her ramped up, and she's not joining on that now, either because she knows she shouldn't join in on the dramatics of that, or she just hasn't experienced what he's trying to, suggest she has experienced. She is in a different world from the one that he's dramatizing in front of her. So again, video 3 here, it looks good for me in terms of somebody giving a relatively consistent record of what they thought was going on at the time. Scott, what do you got on this one?
He's muted.
You guys, I'm whacked on the flu, so I can't, whacked on flu dope, so I can't say anything.
All right, I'll take mine.
Oh, sorry, dude.
That's okay. I figured you wouldn't remember.
Right,
You got the flu drug.
Yeah.
So here's one thing I think about her. While she's agitated, she's also pretty damn cool, all things considered, with what's going on. And I agree with you, Mark. People who are trying to hide something often will listen to your squirrely question and answer it to get plausible deniability. They're like, okay, I understand the question. They usually don't clarify and say, tell me exactly what you're looking for so I can give you an answer and it can go on the record.
Oh, she's been coached, Juicy. She's been coached through this whole thing. You don't tell me that the DA's office, we know the DA's office met with her. We know that Lally meets with these people. This is coaching 101 through all of this. Coaching 101.
That's not usually how people respond. I have a feeling she may have been around cops because she's getting a concise question to know what you're going to ask. I think that initial head toss is an adapter, a release of nervous energy as she starts to understand what he's coming back at. If there were not restrictions on the way you ask questions, and criminal procedure will say how you can ask questions, whether you can ask leading and that, or what kinds of questions you can ask in the courtroom. And I'm sure we could go look up Boston's criminal procedure and figure that out. But if there are no procedures in place, no limiters, you would ask those questions better to say, what did you hear Reed say to the first responders? She would say, bam, bam, bam. And she would likely take a moment to clarify, well, she said this to the police and this to the EMT, this to the male, this to the female. But because he didn't ask it, that we didn't ask it open-ended, he asked some squirrely compound question, it allows her to evade very effectively and move on and say, what are we talking about? There's not a lot of blinking this time. There's some, but there's not a lot. To your point, Chase, it's not stress blinking. It's just not agitated. And while you see she's agitated with this guy, it's not looking like she's stressed over what he's asking. When the focus leaves her, and this is one of those cases you're talking about, we see her push her hair behind her ear. She loses the stress. When the focus leaves her and goes to the bench, you see her push her hair behind her ear. I've agitated people by calling that I'm just a girl. And you see women do that in a lot of ways. Like it can be a display of innocence, that softening of female ears versus this, and showing that ear, all of that kind of thing. It can also be a, hey, get ready. I've had enough of you. And they put their hair behind their ears. So you have to take it into context. But all of this aside, she looks pretty contained and pretty calm because she's agitated with the guy and still not letting it bother her a whole lot. That's all I got. Scott.
Yeah, I'm out. Ooh, that was good. Well, okay, that was a tie. That was a tie. It really was.
Excellent.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCabe, I want to go back very briefly to something you said just before we broke, and that was in respect of the statements that you attribute to my client out of the scene. You said, well, there was an officer possibly asking questions, or it could have been a female EMT, and I wasn't answering questions about that, correct? Hence, you didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Can you be clear on your question?
Let me rephrase that.
I need more
Before
time
we
to think
broke a
about
few
it.
minutes ago, you had said, the reason I didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, is because I was never asked. And the subject came up about what an officer asked her when she declared that. So I just didn't offer it. And then you said, or it could have been an EMT.
Yes, I'm unclear who was there.
Isn't it true that at the grand jury, the question that was posed to you, and this is counsel page 208, grand jury. The question that was posed to you is, quote, so what happens next with yourself, Ms. Roberts, and Ms. Reed? And your answer was, so there are different, police officers getting statements from us. At one point, I'm standing with Ms. Reed, and she's saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And there was, I believe, an EMT, a female, standing right next to me and listening to her yelling, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? It was pretty much nonstop. You remember that testimony?
I do.
So in point of fact, you were answering the direct question about what happened in front of the police officer and the EMT, correct?
There were multiple police officers and multiple EMTs present.
So now this is another police officer and a different EMT.
I'm not saying that.
Okay. But nowhere in this did you say that she declared the words, I hate him. Correct? We'll agree on that.
Correct.
Your Honor, I have an item I would like to have marked as next in order.
Okay.
Question. May I approach?
Yes.
I'll bring it in one that will be exhibit 96.
Thank you.
The calls to Nicole were deleted from your phone before you turned that phone into law enforcement, weren't they?
Not by me.
By somebody else?
I never deleted any calls when I willingly handed my phone over.
You claim that you didn't delete calls, but you do know that your phone was forensically analyzed, and those calls were in the deleted file folder, correct?
I have seen that, but there were 20 calls, all in a group that were all deleted. So cherry picking a few makes it look a different way.
Okay, so we'll get to those. I'm not cherry picking anything, okay? I'm asking you questions about the records.
Which I would love a copy of if I could see.
Oh, why do you always need a copy of
Just go by your
everything?
memory. You've seen these records a bunch of times.
Yeah.
You've been questioned about these records a bunch of times, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Why is she looking at Lally?
we know that you called at 6:07, 6:08, or thereabouts, and about 6:23. 2 to Nicole, 1 to Brian, correct?
Correct.
And you'll agree with me that notwithstanding those phone calls, by the way, did you leave voicemails?
No.
When did you hang up? Before it went to voicemail, or was it into voicemail before you hung up?
So it was a bit of a hysterical scene that
here we
morning,
go.
and I was in a state of shock. And I was just calling my sister and my brother-in-law. They did not answer the phone. I cannot tell you when I hung up because it was a hysterical scene. I was in a state of shock. Everyone was running around. And what seems to be forgotten is that my friend was lying there on the ground.
Well, I don't think anybody's forgotten that.
Is that what it is? So your friend is lying on the ground, but when you get to the scene, You don't run up to the door. You don't pound on Brian Albert's door. You don't start screaming at the top of your lungs to call 911 to get someone out here to help. You don't do any of that, but your friend is lying in the snow. And then when you call and make the 911 call, you go, there's a man down in the snow. Got it. Got it. Sorry, that's not the way that I would handle it. I'd probably be hysterical. I would get out of that car and start running to every door that morning, knocking on a door as I'm having someone at that scene calling 911. It's just what you do. That's natural instinct. Ooh.
Did not leave voicemails for any of those 3 calls, did you?
Again, I don't have my phone record in front of me.
That's because
phone
the
record.
didn't get any voicemails. Because the calls were answered, right?
The calls were not answered.
You do agree with me that Brian Albert being a police officer, never came out of the house.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct. Neither did any neighbor.
I know you'd like to continue editorializing after the fact. There's probably time and place for it. This isn't it. If you can answer my question, I'd ask that you do that. Did Brian Albert come out of the house?
No.
Did Nicole Albert come out of the house?
No.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Look, it's ramping up for me now, more aggressive vocally, especially around this idea of the deleted calls and cherry picking. 20 calls, she says, and she pops the mic on the T of the 20. So clearly some effort and emphasis put around that there's 20 calls in this deleted pile, and therefore the prosecution here is cherry picking around these deleted calls. She doesn't like this at all. Then there's this tilt of the head that she does twice. I think this is very similar, Greg, to the hair behind the ear maneuver, if it's that signal before somebody attacks. It's what I would call a feint, which is you are saying, you know what, I'm listening, I'm harmless here, but actually you're going, you give me one more of those and I'll come at you. Yeah, exactly. That is, when she does that, that's a warning sign that she is not liking how this is going. There's a lot more vocal clicks now.
Well, she's not liking it because she's being asked the tough questions and she's being asked to tell the truth. And always, referencing, can I look at the document? Can I look at the calls? Can you remind me? That's to keep the story going. Stick with the narrative.
As well. So the stress is up in my mind. There's anger starting to come in the teeth. There's also sorrow. Mouth sides go down around my friend was on the ground. She is, I would say, adamant about nobody quite understand, or certainly the prosecution here, the questioner not understanding the emotional severity and potential chaos of this situation, that her friend is dead and all kinds of stuff is going on, and the annoyance of him cherry picking from calls at this point. Again, it seems to me to fit the scenario that we're looking at here. It's not out of...
Kevin, you need to go back about 25 minutes. Go back about 25 minutes, Kevin. We've already addressed this. All right, let's go.
Place, I think, for the scenario we're looking at here in terms of somebody feeling like they are being unreasonably finger pointed at and evidence being cherry picked around this. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, Mark, one of the things we all say all the time is people get aggressive and angry and defiant when they're being wrongly accused. And that might be exactly what we're seeing. This is an interesting one, though, because he gets her on the ropes and we start to see some vulnerability followed by more defiance. Look, we always talk about baseline. And I get people in comments who'll say, you can't possibly know this person's baseline.
Exactly, Scott.
I'm not talking about their baseline at home, eating Cheetos. Everybody can finish that sentence because we say it so often. What I'm talking about is in this stressful situation, what's normal versus what happens when we see changes, spikes, deviations. Here's an interesting one. There's a bunch of change we see in this versus to now. At not by me, when they said, were they deleted? Were their phone calls or texts deleted? Not by me. Boom. Single shoulder shrug, and her chin moves over toward that. That doesn't mean she's lying, but I think, Scott, I'll let you talk about that in just a minute. With Joe Navarro said, most of the time you see it, it's got some kind of deception. Lying and deception could be very different. And you can be pronouncing, I didn't do anything, but that doesn't mean it wasn't done and I didn't know about it. And then she takes a high ground statement, when I willingly handed my phone over. Those two things together are suspect. When I hear that, I want to ask a little bit more. I want to poke and say, wait a minute, let's talk more about that. Then she actually admits her deleted calls because these are among the 20. And that's an outright contradiction.
That's kind of a weird statement. Lying, deception can be two different things. I just looked up the simple definitions here. And you got, lying is the meaning of lying is marked by or containing untrue statements, false, and how to use lying. And it tells you how to use lying in a sentence. And you look at deception. Deception is the act of hiding the truth or using dishonest or illegal methods to get something. It can also mean to trick or fool someone into behaving something is false. It's kind of sort of the same thing, no? Am I wrong on that? Kind of sort of the same thing, right? Or am I off? Am I way off on this, audience? I don't know. Well, I guess I am. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You're kind of lying if you're deceiving someone, correct?
Oh, okay. Here's the question. Did you delete any
calls?
No.
Kind of what
but they were among the 20. Well, that's weird. And this is the first time we actually see turtling. It's when that neck slides down inside the body to protect arteries. We actually see that now. It's actually that your shoulders are rising. Your neck doesn't shrink.
There you go.
It looks that way. And so we know she feels the threat at this point, and she loses some defiance. I see the residual emotion you brought up, Mark, about her friend being dead, withdrawal in the sides of her mouth. Then she's back to defiance about whether the calls are being answered or not. There's a ton of non-contracted denials in here. I don't know they mean anything. I'm going to leave that one for somebody else to talk about, Chase. But it goes on and on and on. And it could be, when I went through interrogator school at Fort Huachuca, Arizona in the 1900s.
But aren't you kind of lying, though, to get someone to move in a certain direction? You could be lying, right?
You would have these kids who went through this course and they came out and they could not talk like a normal person anymore. They'd say, by this, I mean, and they would always say not, do not, did not. Could be the people she hangs around with because of clarity. We all know that police talk on radios and they talk through, they're more clear on their language for that reason. So there's always that. After he admonishes her and he goes back to she goes back to baseline, the first video feed, which you would think we would see a lot of deviation, but we don't. She goes back down to baseline. I wish he would have kept more pressure on the facts about the phone because she was showing vulnerability and I have a better feel for what we're getting. But it could just be she's outright angry because she's being accused. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I tend to agree. A lot of non-contracted denials. But she's saying what seems to be forgotten is that my friend was lying there on the ground. Right after this, there's immediate lip compression when the lips squeeze together. And this is what we call a self-restraint behavior. And it's maybe the body's way of holding back. You're going to see it right before somebody tells a half-truth, or they're trying to prevent some kind of emotional spike from happening. Then we see an increase in her nodding behavior. And I'm personally wondering why she didn't say either his name or his condition, the condition that he was in. That's interesting to me. Other people who were later proven to be truthful brought up their loved ones' names more often, their emotional states directly. Or if they were deceased, they would indicate that a lot more directly. There's one moment in here where she whispers the word well, after the attorney reminds her, I don't think anybody's forgotten that. And this is followed by an eye flutter, and this one is closing apps. And I think this is what we refer to as a mini regression. So when people suddenly lose status in a conversation or they get corrected unexpectedly, you're going to see a brief lapse, almost like a child muttering under their breath. That's a mini regression. So it's when people lose status, they get corrected, you're going to see that happening. Something tells me she may not have understood the sentence the lawyer said about continuing to editorialize. The way she nodded instantly, maybe there's a failure to understand that word specifically or something else. I think there was a lack of understanding there. Scott, what do you got?
I got nothing. Oh, I was going to ask you, Chase, what mic are you using?
Why?
Because it sounds really good, and I know you're using your laptop.
Just the old MacBook camera, MacBook microphone.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Greg?
This is the MacBook that came out a month ago.
Okay. Do I agree?
Yeah, I was just saying you might want to talk about the Joe thing with the chin.
Oh yeah. I thought you were muted. That's why I kept going back to you. That's why. I'm too spaced to even talk about that because I'll get all, I'll misquote or something. I don't want to chance it.
Be tucking on your frog sack.
In public, please.
What's a frog sack?
That's what Greg talked about that one time where that guy had the big.
Oh, that's right.
Who was the guy with the frogs? Who was it? Was it?
It was Andrew.
Oh, it was Andrew.
That's
Yes,
right.
you're right.
That's right. Frog sack.
Well, we now know that. That we now know.
That we now know.
In the Navy.
Yeah. Jeez, man. We got to go. You know, what we got to do. We got to do another ones of videos where we talk about the videos we've done, and how much fun they were, how weird they were.
That'd be a good idea.
And while we're on that, guys, we're coming up, assuming we're still here in a month, we're coming up on 5 years.
Yeah.
We should do a
5
live
years,
Q&A
wow.
so that people, and a short, Scott, you had the idea about short video at the end, but a live Q&A for 30, 45 minutes so that people can actually come on and ask.
That'd be great.
Let's do that. Let's do that. And okay.
make it.
Yeah, we'll
First
figure it out.
week of
We'll let Sadie be in charge of the whatever it is. We'll figure it out, you know, so we get the
Why don't we
questions
make
in.
it an hour and a half? I'm happy to do a long
Sure.
one. That'd be great.
Oh, yeah, we do a long one.
5
Yeah,
years,
man.
guys. 5 years. I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
I feel like
Congratulations.
I've had the flu for 5 years. This thing's horrible. You don't want this thing.
That stinks, man.
You're not getting it. I'm all the way over here. We're all the way
That's
over
true.
here. That's the great,
We won't
the
visit
great thing
you.
about this arrangement. We don't pass on visits to each other. It's like,
No germ passing.
yeah.
Yeah, you almost got it, Chase, because I would have been there in the middle of it, and you still would have been like, "Oh, hey, man, it's okay. I'll hang around.
Give me some of that drink, bro.
Hey, what's up? What's cool?"
Let me start here. Meatball Morsi's Sketty Stain. Love it. $10 says when I asked if she deleted any calls, she said no. If technically she didn't delete the calls, then she wouldn't be lying, but being deceptive because she knows who deleted them, but they're not asking who. It's a good point. And thank you so much for the $10. Yeah. But we know who deleted them. Come on. And that is a great example. Because I was kind of like navigating that road. I'm like, well, isn't kind of lying deception anyway? And I guess there is a difference. There is a difference. And I'm seeing it very clearly now with these examples. I'm seeing it very clearly now. But thank you so much for the 10. All right, let's keep going on here. We got about another, I don't know, 40 minutes. I'm going to bump this up because they're kind of, here we go.
You claim that you didn't delete calls, but you do know that your phone was forensically analyzed, and those calls were in the deleted file folder, correct?
I have seen that, but there were 20 calls, all in a group that were all deleted. So cherry picking a few makes it look a different way.
Okay, so we'll get to those. I'm not cherry picking anything, okay? I'm asking you questions about the records.
Which I would love a copy of if I could see.
We'll get to that in a second. I'm just going by your memory. You've seen these records a bunch of times. You've been questioned about these records a bunch of times, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we know that you called at 6:07, 6:08, or thereabouts, and about 6:23. 2 to Nicole, 1 to Brian, correct?
Correct.
And you'll agree with me that notwithstanding those phone calls, by the way, did you leave voicemails?
No.
When did you hang up? Before it went to voicemail, or was it into voicemail before you hung up?
So it was a bit of a hysterical scene that morning, and I was in a state of shock, and I was just calling my sister and my brother-in-law. They did not answer the phone. I cannot tell you when I hung up because it was a hysterical scene. I was in a state of shock. Everyone was running around, and what seems to be forgotten is that my friend was lying there on the ground.
Oh, I don't think anybody's forgotten that. You, in fact, did not leave voicemails for any of those 3 calls, did you?
Again, I don't have my phone record in front of me.
And that's because Nicole didn't get any voicemails. The calls were answered, right?
The calls were not answered.
You do agree with me that Brian and Nicole Albert, Brian Albert being a police officer, never came out of the house, right?
Correct. Neither did any neighbor.
I know you'd like to continue editorializing after the fact. It's probably a time and a place for it. This isn't it. If you can answer my question, I'd ask that you do that. Did Brian Albert come out of the house?
No.
Did Nicole Albert come out of the house?
No.
Thank you. May I inquire, Your Honor? Fact of the matter is, according to those Cellbrite records and that extraction from your own phone, every one of the calls that you made to John O'Keefe's phone between 12:29 and, I'm sorry, between 12:14 and 12:50 a.m. was deleted and unrecovered, correct?
I didn't understand that report, and I'm not an expert.
When you compare the two, you saw a bunch of calls on John O'Keefe's phone, right? You know he couldn't have deleted them. He passed away.
You know, it's funny. I just look at all these testimonies, and you know, they use things like "I'm not an expert," or "I don't recall," or "I don't remember." Can you show me the report? Can you refresh my memory? It's like, and I remember AJ doing this during this. Like, really? You're really going to say that? and after 2 years, you're really going to say that. It's just to push away and deflect. Get this stink off me. I don't remember. I don't know. I don't recall. I'm not an expert. So be it. Just get it all off me. I don't remember. I don't know. And that's just to brush yourself clean of all this stuff.
Right?
Correct.
It's crazy.
Your cell phone extraction, which is the handshake for John O'Keefe's phone, and all of your calls are missing. Right?
Objection.
Can you answer that question?
I'm confused. That paper, I don't understand it. It was vague. There were numbers. There were calls everywhere. There was a number of missing calls.
There's a bunch of missing calls, right? You didn't see any of the calls that were reflected on John O'Keefe's phone. Is that right? Yes or no? They're not there.
A lot of calls are missing. I'm not really even sure what's there because the numbers are it's all redacted.
So you were not seeing any redacted calls.
The page you just had in front of me was redacted.
It's now an exhibit.
Crazy.
Your personal information was redacted. None of the calls were redacted now.
The numbers, I don't know people's phone numbers. I just have them as contacts.
Ms. McCabe, you just said a second ago, and we can do this all day long, or we can just make it simple. The fact of the matter is that report did not show any of the calls that John O'Keefe's phone report showed, correct? From 12:14 to 12:50.
I believe there was one on there.
5:52. That's the next morning, ma'am. Right?
Were there other calls in that time period on the Celebrate?
You just said there weren't. You just looked at it.
I've told you that Celebrate report was extremely hard to read.
Right. The fact is, there are no calls on your own phone extraction between you and John O'Keefe between 12:14 and 12:50. Would you just agree with that, at least on that report?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The fact is that you deleted your call records before you turned your phone in, didn't you, Ms. McCabe? That's what that report shows.
Absolutely not.
You sanitized your phone because you didn't want the police to know who you had been calling or the fact that you had been calling John O'Keefe's
Looking
phone
for the phone.
incessantly, correct?
Incorrect. I willingly turned over my phone.
After you deleted your phone call logs, correct?
Absolutely not.
What date did you turn your phone over?
Get it straight.
Possibly February 3rd.
How many days after this incident was that?
4 or 5.
Get it straight.
So you had plenty of time to talk to that friends and family group and ultimately decide to delete your phone calls, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever have any group?
Yeah, that's what the award looks like.
That's great. That's super.
Wow.
So
Cute.
yeah,
Is it a bobblehead?
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. I think he bobbleheads. No,
No, don't look
guess
like it.
not.
That's great.
Maybe he might be doing it for you. We can't tell.
Yeah, I think he does have. I think I have a bobblehead right now. Okay, here we go. Chase, what do you got?
There's a problem I've got with this. She is pretending not to know which numbers are which. She's been through this evidence list, and this trial's been going on for a long time.
Bingo.
I would imagine a murder case might make me look at the paper often and frequently. And she's acting as though there's no deletions and no possible action taken on her part. If numbers were deleted from an innocent person's phone, would you think that maybe they might say they didn't delete anything and that they would show emotion about this? Or do you think maybe an innocent person would say that somebody tampered with the phone if something was deleted? Someone tampered with my phone. So now we have a missing perpetrator here. And do you think that there might be a chance an innocent person would openly and confidently deny having anything to do with the deletions, which we're kind of seeing is starting to stretch a little bit? And there's an obvious effort here to be what I would call maybe difficult and detail driven. I think most people would assume that an innocent person would be very straightforward about the whole issue. Truth is almost always very simple. Lies are complicated. When someone's telling the truth, they don't usually need a user manual for a Cellbrite report, which it seems is the case here. And if an innocent person was calling somebody's phone because they were worried about them, wouldn't you assume that they would just say, I was worried about them, instead of giving some kind of obfuscated answer about not understanding a Cellbrite report and not being an expert in it? Interesting point. When she makes her denial about deleting the calls, what happens? Every other denial she's made in these clips involves a no head shake. This time she nods during the denial. She says absolutely not twice in response to 2 questions about deleting these call logs. In each of those, there's nodding. The second denial is followed by a left head turn, which is outside her baseline. Maybe something's going on in the courtroom there, open to that. There's also an increase in her breathing rate. She's breathing more often. So what do we have so far here? We've seen a sudden spike in blinking under pressure, subtle emotional detachment, a shift from I didn't do it to why would I do that? That's a big shift. I didn't do it to why would I do that? And in the nodding during the denials, we've got a solid behavioral pattern starting to form, not proof of deception, but definitely enough for a second look. And it's about to get a lot deeper here in just a few seconds. So keep in mind that if we say something is stretching the truth or deception, we're not saying this person's guilty of the crime or this person was involved in a cover-up. We're talking about this exact instance here. Something just doesn't add up for me, especially with this clip here. Greg, what do you got?
I think Chase got it. And I think he's trying to open up these gentlemen's eyes here. I'm looking at, listen, I'm going to, maybe it's just where I pause this, but I'm looking at Mark's body language here. And I don't think he's feeling it. But let's see what Greg's going to say about this. I think Chase, and I'm seeing the chat, he's starting to catch on now. And maybe he's trying to get these guys to open up their eyes and their mind a little bit here and say, hey, something going on here. But let's see what Greg says. This is a great episode.
Yeah, there are a couple I agree with you. The second, watch that second time that she does the absolutely not.
We had an agree. See that? Greg said, I agree with you. And I'm going to go back so we can hear that again. But before we do that, let's just do this really quick. Stephanie Park, thank you so much for the $100 super chat. Thank you. That's very, very kind to you. Said, longtime fan, first time donating. I love your temperament and candor. If you weren't good at this, the haters wouldn't be prowling you. Keep your chin up and keep speaking the truth. And that is from Nurse Steph. Thank you so much for supporting this stream today. And thank you for being a longtime fan on this channel. And thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind to you. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate you. But let's hear. I think Greg gonna start coming around a little bit here. I don't think Mark has, but we'll see what Greg says here. Thank you. Again,
a lot deeper here in just a few seconds. So keep in mind that if we say something is stretching the truth or deception, we're not saying this person's guilty of the crime or this person was involved in a cover-up. We're talking about this exact instance here. Something just doesn't add up for me, especially with this clip here. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, there are a couple I agree with you. The second, watch that second time that she does the absolutely not. I think it's the jury she clocks. I think it is. And there's almost a smile when she does that. The second, absolutely not. And I'm sure Sadie will plug that up and use it for us. But look, you can see with her, what's interesting is when he has something on her and when she feels empowered. When she feels empowered, she's defiant and aggressive. When she's not, we're going to see that turtling come back. She starts off by chaffing and redirect because he's using facts and a report. When you say chaff and redirect, she's going to spew out something. In this case, there's too much data I can't understand, and boom, and then turn and go away. And she tries that. This not able to understand this report. And I agree with you. Look, this is my phone. If I think this is the case, I would know everything possible there is before I'm called in front of a murder trial. Now, she's not on trial. She's a witness, and he's undermining her believability for Karen Reed's defense. Look, if you had normal questions, you would never ask a question like he just did there. Again, very complex question, compound question, too confusing. You would say things like, let's discuss your phone calls. John's phone shows inbound calls from you at X, Y, and Z. Did you make
Greg's going back to the dark side again. Greg's leaning back to the dark side again.
Make those calls? And she'd say yes or no. And the extracted phone records show that you made those calls and deleted them to non-recoverable. Do you see that on the report? Then you got her standing flat-footed and nowhere to go, but she's feeling pretty confident in this. And then you would say, explain why you would delete any call going out to him at this time frame, because that's what you really want to know. And you would undermine anything she's saying. But he's trying to persuade a jury, and it might be enough for him to just force this issue and not to clarify. She goes back to stern approach the minute she knows he has nothing. Once that falls apart, she goes back to being defiant and aggressive and all of that. But then when he comes back to her, there are no other calls that have had this done. Watch the turtling come back. Her neck shrinks down into her body. Funny. She does absolutely not. The second one with a slight hint of a smile. And I would have said, if I were in his shoes right here, did somebody else delete those? If so, how'd that happen? It's your phone. And this was done before you handed it over. I would put it on the rocks right there.
I think that's a good question.
I think it probably has to do with the way he's supposed to question. That was not admissible. Or maybe just ask bad questions. Scott, what do you got? Or Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, listen, I agree, Chase, in that there's some not very good answers given here. There would be better answers out there, let's say. We'd all feel a lot better if some better answers were given. And I agree with you, Greg, that the questions could be a lot better to get the better answers. So it's a bit of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other here. She seems to consistently contest the deleted calls. So there is that from that point of view. Like, she is against the idea consistently, but her answers as to why it happened, they're not good. You're right, Chase. Her illustrator is really good on the redactions in there. So I think she does truly feel that there's some redaction in there. There's something not.
It's interesting, and listen, I don't know. And maybe this is just coincidence. Okay. I just want to bring this back up. The other side, Jules says, I hope Karen's team watches this. And this is kind of funny, is that Karen was actually basically the mainstream media the other day twisted something that she said about the O.J. Simpson trial. And I know Barstool Sports went after a hit piece on her this morning, but I think it's funny. And maybe this is just coincidence. I don't know. But I do know that, the Reeds watch these streams. I do know that, her team watches these streams. But I have been saying over the last couple of weeks, if you're here a long timer on the channel, or you've just come to my channel in the last couple of weeks, what have I talked a lot about on my stream? I've talked about the O.J. Simpson trial, and I keep talking about this documentary that just recently came out on Netflix. And, I just keep saying, listen, I think O.J. Simpson is 1,000,000,000% guilty. I think he totally did it. The evidence points in that direction. But what his team did was exploit this, all this evidence collection. I've been talking about it over and over again. I said, exploit the evidence collection. That's where you're going to get in this case with, in Karen Reed's trial. Go after how they collected this evidence, the leaf blower, the solo cups, the stop and shop bags. There's a lot to exploit there. When you watch that scene of them blowing around the snow in the snow blower, the leaf blower, I keep snow blower, I say snow blower because snow, but the leaf blower, you're looking in that crime scene and there's a million footprints behind there. Like, why was that not corded off? But it's funny. I've been talking a lot about that lately. And, I was like, I wonder if, they started to kind of look into this stuff. But I think that is going to be, I think, the major point. And I would like to see them exploit, this evidence collection and how poor the evidence was collected. And, we even saw it in the Canton audit. The first thing that their recommendations that I don't agree with anything in that Canton audit, with the exception of a few things, was they should have been taking, photos of the crime scene right away. And they didn't have that equipment. They didn't do it. They should have corded off the area with crime scene tape. It wasn't done. And I think there's a big, strong point here for Karen's team to attack. All right, let's keep playing through here.
Now I've not seen the document. So, it would be an easy one for us to, if we could see the document, to go, look, here's the reality. And it's not reasonable to say that's redacted. Or like, yeah, no, it's totally reasonable. There is some data missing from that she, and when was she shown this evidence? Was it a long time ago? Was it that day? So how much can she investigate it? And I just don't know the answer to that. But even with that, Chase, I'm still concerned that there could be better answers. But then, data, which is this sheet that we have, data is not analysis, is not evidence. So, and it seems to me that the lawyer here is going, there's the data, so there's the evidence. And it seems like he's not giving us the analysis, or he's going, well, what's your analysis of that? And she's going, well, I don't understand the data, so I can't even analyze it. So you don't have any evidence. I think everybody's a little bit inept in this situation. So it's not moving us very far forward. So it does feel a little bit frustrating, I think, and a little bit odd.
God, that'd be great, right?
Questionable. And I'm going to put it down to the odd and questionable nature of the questions being asked and therefore the answers being given. And what I wrote down here, because I was just working out this as I went along, I was even, even at this stage, I was thinking, this is the Karen Reed case. Like, what's going on? What's going on here? Is she accused? Is this person accused of something? Like, what on earth is going on here? And then I went, okay, the attorney here is trying to create doubt for the benefit of Karen Reed. And if that is what's happening, not a bad job, because I'm very doubtful and confused around a lot of stuff here. I just don't know what exactly is going on. So is this to cast doubt? If it is, I think it's doing a good job.
Yeah, and that's what it's
Asking
for.
doubt.
This shows in your life, if you want to cause confusion, ask complex questions that people can't understand and answer, or give them data they can't understand and get them to try to draw some kind of conjecture from it.
Right.
You create chaos.
But still, at the end of the day, even with that, Chase, I think you're right in that there's got to be some better answers out there. Even if she were to go, oh, okay, let me just reframe the question, and I'll be able to give you a decent answer. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. Scott.
Yeah, again, I'm going to pass because I'm whacked on flu dope.
Sorry, man.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, according to those Cellbrite records and that extraction from your own phone, every one of the calls that you made to John O'Keefe's phone between 12:29 and, I'm sorry, between 12:14 and 12:50 a.m. was deleted and unrecovered, correct?
I didn't understand that report, and I'm not an expert.
When you compare the two, you saw a bunch of calls on John O'Keefe's phone, right? You know he couldn't have deleted them. He passed away, right?
Correct.
You saw your cell phone extraction, which is the handshake for John O'Keefe's phone, and all your calls are missing, right?
Objection.
Can you answer that question?
I'm confused. That paper, I don't understand it. It was vague. There were numbers. There were calls everywhere. There was a number of missing calls.
There's a bunch of missing calls, right? You didn't see any of the calls that were reflected on John O'Keefe's phone. Is that right? Yes or no? They're not there.
A lot of calls are missing. I'm not really even sure what's there because the numbers are it's all redacted.
So you were not seeing any redacted calls, Mr. Smith.
The page you just had in front of me was redacted.
It's now an exhibit.
It's now an exhibit. Your personal information was redacted. None of the calls were redacted now.
The numbers. I don't know people's phone numbers. I just have them as contacts.
Ms. McCabe, you just said a second ago, and we can do this all day long, or we can just make it simple. The fact of the matter is that report did not show any of the calls that John O'Keefe's phone report showed, correct? From 12:14 to 12:50.
I believe there was one on there.
5:52. That's the next morning, ma'am. Right?
Were there other calls in that time period on the Celebrate?
You just said there weren't. You just looked at it.
I've told you that Celebrate report was extremely hard to read.
Right. The fact is, there are no calls on your own phone extraction between you and John O'Keefe between 12:14 and 12:50. Would you just agree with that, at least on that report?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The fact is that you deleted your call records before you turned your phone in, didn't you, Ms. McCabe? That's what that report shows.
Absolutely not.
You sanitized your phone because you didn't want the police to know who you had been calling or the fact that you had been calling John O'Keefe's phone incessantly, correct?
Incorrect. I willingly turned over my phone.
After you deleted your phone call logs, correct?
Absolutely not.
What date did you turn your phone over?
Possibly February 3rd.
How many days after this incident was that?
4 or 5.
So you had plenty of...
The phone was turned over on the day that they were processing Karen Reed's vehicle inside the Sally Port. Interesting. Very interesting.
time to talk to that friends and family group and ultimately decide to delete your phone calls, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever have any group there? Did you delete any of your calls before you turned your phone into law enforcement?
I spoke with the 2 officers that I handed my phone over to, and I asked if I could delete the personal conversations with my daughters. And they said absolutely yes, that I could.
So other than calls with your daughters that you did you delete any other calls on your phone at all?
There were text messages. It was actually text messages with my daughters that I deleted, and that was all I deleted.
Did you delete any phone calls?
I do not recall deleting any phone calls at all. I would have no reason to delete anything.
So that's very different than I didn't.
Except that Google search.
I do not remember deleting phone calls. Means you might have.
In day-to-day life, people delete things, but I do not recall deleting any phone calls.
In day-to-day life, did you delete any of the calls to John O'Keefe?
No.
Did you delete any of your calls with Nicole Albert?
No.
Did you delete any of your calls with Brian Albert?
No.
With Chris Albert?
No.
With Julie Albert?
No.
Colin Albert?
No.
With any of the witnesses in this case, did you delete any calls before you turned that phone over?
No. No.
May I please?
Yes.
Oh, guess what?
Continue.
Love that kid. Okay. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. Okay. So here's something interesting. She hedges the possibilities of how calls could, or the possibilities of O'Keefe's calls being deleted, but she says no to her deleting the calls. So it is fair to say she's open to the possibility that the calls were deleted, but she is pretty adamant that she did not delete his calls or the calls of anybody else who are witnesses in this trial. And that feels, from my point of view, what I saw, what I heard from her, that seems pretty full on, that she's adamant about that. But I'm open to somebody seeing and hearing something different. Chase, you got any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, as I understand it, she previously said she doesn't even know how to delete data from a phone. And I thought this was interesting to hear. And when she's confirming deleting the messages between her and her daughters, we're seeing the same nodding we saw in the previous clip where she's denying. It's the same nodding as when we saw her denying in another clip. She's been vehemently denying deleting calls, and now the denial is a long transderivational search where her eyes are kind of going all over the place, followed by a statement of memory of deleting instead of a denial anymore. Now it's about memory. I don't remember if I did it. So this is followed by a statement about her motive and not her actions. And this is a very different thing than a denial, as the attorney points out. That's a psychological shift, and it's from a behavior to a justification. So when we see people who are open and honest in court, they usually say stuff like, I didn't do that. And you're more likely to hear, why would I do that, from someone who might be concealing or deflecting something. So that why is a mask. So when the attorney's going through all of these names, there's a distinct difference between her saying no to all the names when certain names come up. I don't know these people, but I thought it would be interesting if you know the case. There's no cluster of behavior here, but it's definitely a change in behavior on a few of those. And the denial about deleting the calls overall from the last couple of clips seems to be deceptive, just based on the standard behavior analysis guidelines that we follow.
There it is right there. Seems to be deceptive. Yep, Jenny GA chases onto them. Yep, I think he started to catch on. There. I agree. Yep, he just said it.
There's a lot to unpack here, and I wish we had more time to do it, but this is now getting way more into the realm of
please do a separate video and unpack more for us. We would love to see it.
Potential for deception. Greg?
Yeah, Mark, you want another answer? This one would have me crawling her ass if she were in interrogation doing this, because she does one thing, and I'm going to talk about one thing, and that is listen to that tone and the long I before deleted. Listen to the pregnant pause between that was all boom, 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 I, overpronounced, deleted. Go back even in this clip and listen to every other time she says I, deleted. That's powerful. That's powerful. And to your point, Chase, a dramatic deviation from baseline should get my undivided attention over that one thing right there, because it is a deviation from everything in the Senate structure around it. That's all I got.
Clear. Did you delete any of your calls before you turned your phone into law enforcement?
I spoke with the two officers that I handed my phone over to, and I asked if I could delete the personal conversations with my daughters. And they said absolutely yes, that I could.
So other than calls with your daughters that you did you delete any other calls on your phone?
You shouldn't be fucking deleting anything. You shouldn't be deleting fucking anything. There's an investigation into a death. You shouldn't be fucking deleting anything. And why cops are saying, yeah, sure, delete it. That doesn't make any sense to me. Can I do? Yeah, go ahead, delete it. Why would you allow someone to do that? You're investigating a death. You're investigating people that have been there. Unreal.
At all.
There were text messages. It was actually text messages with my daughters that I deleted, and that was all I deleted.
Did you delete any phone calls?
I do not recall deleting any phone calls at all. I would have no reason to delete anything.
You're a liar.
What's very different than I didn't delete any phone calls. I do not remember deleting phone calls. Means you might have.
In day-to-day life, people delete things, but I do not recall deleting any phone calls.
In day-to-day life, did you delete any of the calls
Right.
to John O'Keefe?
No.
Did you delete any of your calls with Nicole Albert?
No.
Did you delete any of your calls with Brian Albert?
No.
With Chris Albert?
No.
With Julie Albert?
No.
Colin Albert?
No.
With any of the witnesses in this case, did you delete any calls before you turned that phone over?
No. No.
May I please?
Yes.
For sight. correct?
Absolutely not.
Did you take any steps whatsoever to influence Carrie Roberts' statements?
No.
Because that would be collusion, wouldn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you write a text to the group, including Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matt McCabe, where you informed them that, quote, and this is, Your Honor, on page 2158, where you informed them, quote, Carrie is here going over timeline, end quote.
Correct.
So you reported back to Brian, Nicole, and Matt that Carrie was where?
She came over my house.
And you two sat down and went over a, quote, timeline together.
Peggy spoke to Carrie.
Yes or no? I didn't ask about Peggy.
Well, that's where the timeline started at.
Did you ask Carrie, or did Carrie show up at your house and, quote unquote, go over a timeline with you?
Carrie showed up asking to sit down with me to do a timeline so we would remember everything that had happened.
And you wanted to be super helpful about that, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask it differently.
Sure. You wanted to be helpful to Carrie Roberts.
The two of us were trying to figure out what had happened to our friend.
And so you made sure that you created and drafted with Carrie Roberts a timeline for her, correct?
I didn't make sure of anything. She was the one that asked me to do it.
And not only did you create a timeline, you then reported back to your group, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, that she was creating this timeline with you on February 1st, 2022. Isn't that right?
Yes.
After you created or drafted this timeline with Carrie, she actually sat for an interview with the police, did she not? That's not in the...
Yeah, exactly.
She sat down for
Yeah,
an interview.
exactly. Let's make sure you timeline this out. You know why you timeline something out and you have people that are involved, multiple people involved in an incident, and they timeline things out? You know why that happens? So you can all keep your story straight. Why would you need to keep your story straight if you're telling the truth, right? Yeah, I don't like that. That's something that needed to be explored a lot more in this.
With the police, didn't you?
When?
You tell me. That's my question.
I'm not sure of when you're talking about.
Okay, let's start over.
Yes.
After this timeline was created on February 1st, at some point thereafter, Carrie Roberts conducted a formal interview with the police about this case, correct?
You should timeline it.
Do you have the report of that date?
We're sort of bearing the lead. She did the interview in your living room, ma'am. Right?
There was, on Tuesday, 2 officers came to the
AJ
house
goes,
and she sat in the other room and spoke with them.
So, using my question, she did the interview at your house.
Oh, they came to my house to interview me, and she happened to be there. So they asked if they could speak with her also.
Okay. Did she or did she not do an interview at your house?
Did, yes.
That wasn't that hard. You were present for that interview, weren't you?
I was eating dinner.
Where's Will?
He's hanging out with me here in the room.
Hey, man. We had Will come on a few minutes ago, but we had him on where you can't show it on this because it's an off-screen thing. Your hair's getting long, dude.
Yeah. We can only see your chin.
Looking good.
There you go. Holy smokes. Yeah, I think you're right, Mark. Our algorithm's going to change. Our demographics going to change a lot for this one spike. How old are you now?
Goodbye, everybody.
Hi.
Are you 15 or 16?
16 years old. I turned 17 in June.
Did you get a car yet?
No, not yet. No.
Come on,
Chase. When are you going to get him a car, man?
Well, monster trucks take time to save up for.
Well, yeah. Don't let me influence your purchase options because you'll be in trouble.
Don't listen to Greg. Don't do it.
Monster trucks aren't as fun as fast things.
No, don't do a fast car.
Yeah, sports cars are much better.
I agree. I got a truck too, but I like my car better.
Yeah.
Okay, girls, enough car talk.
See
you later, man. That's going to change our demo, at least for that one spot. All right, Greg, what do you got?
So she's back to defiant with a correct, not yes, correct. Her chin is up. She's out of turtling, and there's a flash of anger when she says, Carrie asked me to do the timeline.
And again, I want to let everybody know before they go, oh, you're just taking something like a video and you're making your own fucking content about it. I respectively, every time I do one of these, and I've only done it once before this, I did it with a Nicholas Aliverdian video, and I reached out to Scott and said, look, do you mind if I use your video to make some content to react over it? And he was perfectly fine. And I just keep going, Scott, you need to come on the come on my channel. Come on my channel. And I did reach out to Scott before I did this episode, so there is an email in his queue. I know he's not feeling well right now, and I'm sure that he will answer me at some point. But I keep saying, you guys got to come over here and do something on LTL Media. So I'm going to keep being persistent. Maybe I can get them over here at some point to kind of do a live exercise with me. But I do let them know when I do these. So it's not like I'm just grabbing their video and doing it. And like I said, with the Nicholas Alaverdian video, Scott said, I'm perfectly fine with it. We just love when people reach out and ask us first, so we don't get nailed with a copyright strike. So they're good. You know, he's good about it. He was great last time. And I keep bugging him, like, you need to come on the show. So maybe we'll get him over here sometime. All right, let's keep going through here.
Remember everything. And then she makes hard eye contact with what I assume is the jury for only the second time in this entire video. Her cadence slows and her tone goes to telling. So I think she's defiant and angry again. Then she chaffs and redirects to get away from where she did the interview. She knows what he's asking. She's avoiding. That doesn't look good. And it is playing right into his hands if he's trying to undermine her credibility with the jury, I would say. And this is the last time we see a tongue jut, when she's called out for the interview being in the living room. And that's Desmond Morris again saying, baby's first no, rejecting food. All that plays right into the hands of saying, is this credible testimony to the jury, in my opinion? Chase, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And we're kind of reaching a crescendo of questionable behavior here. I think it's suspicious. We don't often see openly truthful people act this way. Just to be very straightforward, there's confusion about timelines, litigating every statement, acting uncertain.
Colleen, did I make it in the video? Colleen said, did anyone see Plevin's video last night? The free Karen readers. Did I make it in the video? I never make it in any of these videos or lists. It's crazy. I see them all over X all the time. I'm never included in any of it.
Certain about key details that are well known, that are known. Uncertainty about known information.
I make the list.
And almost what appears to be deliberately evasive behavior on points that should be normal and rational. Just, hey, someone's missing. I called him a shitload of times because they were missing. And there's all kinds of weird deflection about all of that kind of stuff. And when somebody knows a timeline well, and they respond by limiting information, that's not what we usually see in openly truthful people. If there's a message to someone that's openly and honestly a desire to review details of the case, like let's walk through the timeline, which I believe any group of friends would do following a homicide of one of their friends. Why would there be a need to obfuscate and dodge and minimize details and add in ambiguity about everything? It should just be, yes, of course we did this. Of course we did that. I think it's a normal behavior. But when details get vague and the questions aren't that complex, it's usually not about memory. Typically, when I see it, it's about management. So managing some kind of perception or managing maybe liability. If there was a truly innocent gathering of people with the intent to establish some kind of timeline, and with the second intent being to find a killer, why would that need to be hidden and dodged? I find that bizarre. So if a meeting somehow occurred before a police interview and an openly honest person wants to make sure the details are all there before the police show up, why would they deliberately try to avoid saying that? So if the information is truthful, honest, and rational, why is there an effort to inject some ambiguity into very simple questions? I'm not saying there's guilt here, but I'm definitely saying that something is off. I understand there's a confrontational conversation going on. It's by nature. And understand there's stress about how she's being perceived in the public eye. She's been through a whole lot with like the online mob or whatever. But why not just be direct and honest about things if there were simply things that normal people would do, which I think a lot of this is. Even if you're 100% innocent, you don't dodge obvious behavior. So calling a friend repeatedly, that's normal. Sitting down to figure out the story, that's normal. So when you treat those normal behaviors like they're radioactive, that's when things start feeling way off, even to the jury. Even to an untrained eye, something's going to be like, I don't know what it was, but something's not right about this. So as a final thought here, motive tends to shift behavior when someone's recalling details. So even behavior that seems normal, like calling somebody who's missing a bunch of times, meeting to discuss all this stuff, getting ready to speak with the police, why not talk about the incidents and the details as if there's nothing to hide? Why obfuscate and do all that stuff? I think this behavior has the potential to transfer a lot of doubt in the jury's mind, even if they aren't behavior profilers. People get intuition and gut feelings like something's just not adding up. Mark, what do you?
Yeah, look, I think you're both right. The answers are ambiguous. They're not. Let's just say they're not as good as they could be. You know, they're not as certain as they could be. I agree with everything you're saying there. At the same time, for me, there is a justifiable confusion in this last one here. When I heard the interviewer, the questioner, talk about a formal interview, my mind went to a police station, a table, 2 chairs. That's no, I wasn't there at the event. But my mind goes there. Then I find out, what the interviewer is talking about is what seems to me an ad hoc interview that happens in somebody's home, apropos of them being there as well. So I can justify the confusion with the person being interviewed, not quite understanding that the questioner, when they talk about a formal interview, is talking about an interview that could happen at the home because the person was there. Okay. So, and in my mind, I would go, why would you call it a formal interview? That doesn't sound like it was a formal interview. Wouldn't you just say, hey, so, she was there at the time the police interviewed you. What happened there? So the question is set up in such a way that it can cause confusion in me and potentially confusion in her, or she may be acting that confusion. Okay. But even that it's set up, the question is set up in this way in the first place, says to me that the questioner is trying to create confusion, not trying to clarify answers. And because of that, I can't be certain of the veracity of the answers that are even given. Because the questioner is not asking questions in good faith, potentially. They're asking questions in order to cast doubt. And so what we get is some doubtful answers. I would love to see the same person questioned in a way that isn't trying to cast doubt, but is trying to get to a specific point of guilt or innocence around a crime being committed. But that's not what's happening here. Doubt is being cast, and therefore I'm concerned about the doubtful answers that come up. That's just me. Oh, and then at the end, the questioner says, that wasn't that hard. Well, that's belittling. And so,
of course.
Yeah, I can imagine what happens after this is more rising of the hackles. Like if you wanted to really annoy some Bostonian, person who is around police quite a lot, that wasn't that hard. Like that's gonna crank it up, isn't it? So I should maybe have a look at the video to see what happens after this, because there's probably more of the same. Yeah.
There's 3.5 hours of this.
Right.
So I just cut it down. There are 24 clips that are this long. I just cut it way back to get to this. I transcribed it and cut it back to this. So, yeah.
And does it ramp up even more?
Yeah, she gets a little more irritated, a little more agitated.
Right. Scott, back to you.
All right. Again, I'm whacked on dope, so I'm going to pass to be fair. Okay, Chase, you win that one. Nicely done.
Yeah, thank you.
Oversight, correct?
Absolutely not.
Did you take any steps whatsoever? Any steps whatsoever to influence Carrie Roberts?
Thank you, Colleen.
No.
Thank you.
Because that would be collusion, wouldn't it?
Objection. Sustained.
Did you write a text to the group, including Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matt McCabe, where you informed them that, quote, and this is, Your Honor, on page 2158, where you informed them, quote, Carrie is here going over timeline, end quote.
Correct.
So you reported back to Brian, Nicole, and Matt.
Good morning.
Carrie was
Amy.
where?
She came over my house.
And you two sat down and went over a, quote, timeline together.
Peggy spoke to Carrie.
Yes or no? I didn't ask about
Thanks,
Carrie.
Scott. Take care.
Well, that's where the timeline started at.
Did you ask Carrie, or did Carrie show up at your house and, quote unquote, go over a timeline with you?
Carrie showed up asking to sit down with me to do a timeline so we would remember everything that had happened.
And you wanted to be super helpful about that, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask it differently.
Sure. You wanted to be helpful to Carrie Roberts.
The two of us were trying to figure out what had happened to our friend.
And so you made sure that you created and drafted with Carrie Roberts a timeline for her, correct?
I didn't make sure of anything. She was the one that asked me to do it.
And not only did you create a timeline, you then reported back to your group, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, that she was creating this timeline with you on February 1st, 2022. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Oh, Alaska. Check it in.
After you created or drafted this timeline with Carrie, she actually sat for an interview with the police, did she not? That's not in the chats. I'm just asking. She sat down for an interview with the police, didn't she?
When?
You tell me. It's my question.
I'm not sure of when you're talking about.
Okay, let's start over.
Yes.
After this timeline was created on February 1st, at some point thereafter, Carrie Roberts conducted a formal interview with the police about this case, correct?
Do you have the report of that date?
We're sort of bearing the lead. She did the interview in your living room, ma'am. Right?
Tell the
There
truth.
was on Tuesday,
He goes,
2 officers came to the house and she sat in the other room and spoke with them.
Well, that's
So-
an interview.
Using my question, she did the interview at your house.
Oh, they came to my house to interview me, and she happened to be there. So they asked if they could speak with her also.
Okay. Did she or did she not do an interview at your house?
Did, yes.
That wasn't that hard. You were present for that interview, weren't you?
I was eating dinner.
Okay, out of 3 hours of court stuff, came up with what? What is that? 25 minutes probably?
I
25
was,
minutes?
yeah, I
Something like
was.
that?
Videos
Yep.
with
Yeah. All right. So, Mark, what did you see in all this? What do you think?
It's funny. Well, it was the ID. It was the ID doc. It was episode 4, the last episode. And again, you know, we all sat down with all those producers. They decided at the very last minute to ditch all of us and allow the plebans of the world to come in and tell their story. Fucking ridiculous. I mean, they didn't have anybody. Paul Cristoforo made it in, which was great. I was happy for him there. But it was like we did all this kind of like sneaking around and keeping everything secret. And I sat for like a 2.5 hour interview. It would have been at least maybe a 5-second clip, but it was cool. Yeah, I did see that in the episode. So I made my 5 seconds of fame in a doc. I was in a documentary for 5 seconds, probably 3 seconds, maybe like 2. But yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it was cool to see that. All right, we got a couple more minutes, about 4 or 5 more minutes. We're gonna wrap it up for this afternoon here. I want to thank everybody for being here on this live show today. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hey, just wanted to let everybody know, LTL overnight just got to 39,500 subscribers. We're less than 500 subscribers right now away from joining the 40,000 club. So if you're not subbed up on YouTube, you need to get subbed up. Turn on those bell notifications. Help get this platform out there into this crazy, huge world of YouTube. I appreciate it. And then tomorrow we'll be back at 11 a.m. for this Sunday Super Show. I'll have my co-host here, Lauren DC, will be here. We're going to have Tom and Boston Mike from Seeking Justice. And quite possibly, we might have a very, very, very special guest. We're working on that. And tomorrow, you're not going to want to miss the Super Show. All right, let's wrap this up about another 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'm going to head out. I'm going to grab some lunch and start feeling better here. All right, here we go.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of reiterate what I said on that last video, is that because I think of what is being tried to be achieved by the questioner here, I'm concerned about the indefinite nature of the answers because of the line of questioning. But I totally agree.
I'll answer this. Nicole says, is there a standout tomorrow in Dedham? I would assume there is, because there normally is every Sunday. So shout out to the ground crew. All right, let's go.
Chase, that there are better answers that she should be giving. And potentially she could have came up with better questions herself, so she could have given a better answer. and actually, probably you're right. She could just give a better answer to the terrible questions that are being asked. But in the end, they're not great questions. They're driving to create confusion and doubt, and they do a good job of that. That's my take on it. Chase, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And you don't need to be in a courtroom to spot deceptive behavior. When somebody's telling the truth, they usually want to share. When somebody's managing perception, they usually want to limit. And the contrast, it usually shows up in every conversation if you're watching for it. So keep a lookout for that in your daily life. Am I seeing limiting or sharing information? And am I seeing weird answers to simple questions? That's one of the first things I teach everybody when I teach deception detection. Am I seeing weird or unusual answers to simple questions? And I get it, Mark, I agree. These questions were not exactly the simplest in the world. Greg?
It's a complex mess because what they're trying to do is undermine her story, at the same time kind of project that possibly the murder was done inside the house and he was brought out. So it's a double-edged sword. It's not just trying to undermine, it's also insinuating that you're part of a cover-up for murder. So it's really complex. But Chase, a lot like what you just said, when you try to resist interrogation, you do one thing: you try to avoid answering the question. And I'll leave it at that and say it's hard to be credible in front of a jury and to convince the jury that you're being credible when you're not answering questions. And if all you have to do is sow doubt, which is what you're trying to do in this case, this is a very effective means of doing that. Now, because there was a mistrial and a retrial coming up, we'll see exactly how it works next. 150 witnesses on the list they plan to call. So this will be around a little while. By the way, Karen Reed did a 1-hour interview just recently with a TV station. We chose this because we want to show both sides of the story. But if you're interested, write down below, and we'll cover that Karen Reed interview as well. All right, Scott.
And don't forget, we put all of our notes in a PDF and send them out to you. So below will be a link where you can get that.
All right. We're going to end that there. And what I'll do is I'll leave the link in the description if you want to watch this video without my commentary. But that, listen, there is some things that I agreed with. There's some things that I don't agree with. I think overall it was a pretty decent analysis. I think, knowing a little bit more context going to this probably would have helped. I get it. They're just looking at body language. They're looking at what the questions are being raised to them, and they're looking at the body language of the person, of how they're reacting. But I think context in this is very, very important. And that's something that I just urge a lot of people to do if they're going to do kind of these breakdowns. Look into the context of things that are going on, because I think this is a very complicated, it's very simple case, but I think it's complicated sometimes when people just first kind of come into it. But I think, great effort overall from the behavioral panel. I think Chase was more on to what was going on here. At the end, you kind of turned back a little bit. But again, overall, very, very, very good. And I appreciate Scott letting me do these. Again, I did one before with the Nicholas Alaverdian video, and it was great to do this one as well and look at it. I knew a lot of people would want to watch this. But again, I will leave the link to this one down in the comments below if you want to watch it without my commentary. And again, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow live at 11 a.m. Lauren DC, again, will be joining me here as a co-host. Super Sunday show. We'll have Tom, CPU, and Boston Mike. And may have a very, very special guest. We're working on that. But it's still going to be a great show regardless. I think it's going to be really good. I'm looking forward to it. So again, everybody, thank you so much for being here on this live show today. I appreciate everybody. Again, we're only less than 500 subscribers away from hitting 40,000. Maybe we can do that today, and then tomorrow celebrate that on the Sunday Super Show. If not, we'll get there very soon. I feel very confident. The channel is just growing at an alarming rate. There's so many new people coming into the platform. It feels very good to see all of you here. We had a great chat today, a very interactive chat, which I like. And I appreciate all of the support that came through today monetarily. Thank you so much. It keeps the lights on, the rent paid, and all that fun stuff, and my belly full after I do these lives. So I appreciate that. I think that's going to be it. I think that's going to be it today. Thank you. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you back tomorrow on the Sunday Super Show. And we're going to have some fun. We're going to have a lot of fun on that show. All right, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Talk to you soon. I love all of you. Thank you, moderators, subscribers, and members. I really do appreciate it. And we got a long way to go. 2.0 is going to be a hell of a ride. But we're going to be here for it. All right, everybody. See ya.